our demographic again?
Our demographic
Like
is
kids who aren't playing video games and 19 years old.
Yeah, which is like 6 people, right?
People who
Right.
drive cars.
So we're and Ray, it looks like that this is gonna go live on your Ray Flavin page in 4 minutes.
That it just did.
It's got a timer on it for 4 minutes. But
I
think
it's on a time delay because they want to look at this before we do something.
we're up now. I think our target demographic is like older than kids who are really into big video games, but younger than people who see Wheel of Fortune every day as like the end of their day. We're somewhere in there.
Hey, right. You're picking on my mom.
I'm not picking on your mom.
I won't have you pick on my mom like that.
It appears that we're on.
Yeah, we're on a different thing. I'm gonna tweet out a link. Ray, you better put it on the Facebook.
I put it on the Facebook. As it turns out, YouTube is more complicated than we first thought it was. It's not that easy thing that people just where you just put it on YouTube and then they let the audience decide. It's not like that.
Is this where we start complaining that we're too controversial for YouTube?
Well, we knew that already, but
I don't know. Some of the things I've seen on YouTube, I seem to think we're like, back of the line, bottom of the barrel as far as controversy goes.
That is us. That is our channel.
What do I
Back
know?
of the line, bottom of the barrel.
So I want to ask a question really quick because I'm sure you guys have a lot to talk about. But whoa, why doesn't anybody on Twitter want to talk to me about Live PD?
You know what? Live PD, as I'm finding, I mean, I knew I started watching it. You turned me on to that Live PD, and I watched it a little bit, and then I started following on Twitter, and I knew they were zealots. But oh my God, it's like you just took heroin away from junkies. They are going nuts.
The Live PD crowd is the most insane, foaming at the mouth, rabid, blindly loyal group of people I've ever seen for any TV show. And I lived through Seinfeld and Friends and all this other stuff.
Oh, they're nuts. They're nuts.
Because it in a lot of those people's opinions, it mixes like some of their favorite things, which is like politics and violence and sitting on your ass watching TV. I can't think of another reason for it. And then they're duped into thinking this stuff is real.
Yes.
I don't, Ray, I don't know if you ever saw an episode, but they would focus on these cops. So they'd find either a cop who talked a lot or did whatever, or was a younger woman or whatever. And they didn't say this outright, but they'd basically follow like these featured cops around. And it was crazy because that cop would be, as soon as the show started, he's in the mix for a burglary at a liquor store. Then they come from break, and that same cop is on a scene for DUI. And then they come back from another break, and they go back, and that cop is involved in serving an arrest warrant. Like
it wasn't live.
It was live. So I'll get to that in a minute.
You're super busy.
So yeah, it was tape delayed, but they would run that cop around because the cameras were following him to anything. So where a normal cop on a normal shift does like one or two exciting things and then paperwork or whatever, they made it look like this is the most exhilarating job on the planet.
Well, they had that one dude, and I don't even remember where he's at, but he was. It seems like every time I turn it on, just this big shredded man mountain.
Garrow Brown,
with the two sleeves,
like roast beef. Dan Pask was Roast Beef Arms, right?
Yes, and he had just two sleeves of tattoos. Yeah, and that dude was every time I turned it on, he was on.
Yeah, so there were these like favorite cops, and they would move them around from scene to scene. But then they would also do stuff like, and you guys know this isn't how it goes down. You'd turn on a Friday show at 8:30, and they're like doing a home search for somebody with an arrest warrant, and you're like, man, that doesn't happen in the real world. They show up at 4 a.m. when they think everybody's sleeping and they know nobody's going to sweat them coming in. But here they are ready to go as soon as the primetime lights are on, and it's still bright, like in Arizona. Right. And they're just coming in like right in the front door, and you're watching it. And these foaming at the mouth fans are like, wow, they're so brave. And this is so incredible. And anybody who knows police work is watching it going, this is so contrived and so set up and so staged for this rabid fan base that it was not accurate policing, period.
It's now that I've started watching NASCAR. Thank you, Matt.
Yes.
It's got the same kind of feel as NASCAR, because there's a huge portion of NASCAR fans, I gotta believe, that are waiting for an accident.
Oh yeah.
There's an even bigger, whatever that number is in NASCAR, that number is probably 2 to 3 times bigger, the percentage, with live PD fans who just want to see cops fight.
Yeah, and what made me feel most uncomfortable was, you guys know this, you turn those cameras on and you take what would normally be a mundane police stop, and now the person's getting a lecture or they're getting a talk about drugs or whatever. And a lot of times it would just turn into outright mockery of somebody who had a mental health or a substance issue.
Oh
and
my
then
God.
they'd flip it back to the studio, and old Dan Abrams would roll his eyes and be like, sounds like deputy's got a wild one there. And you're like, no, Dan, this is somebody with a mental illness. This is not somebody you should be mocking to pay your mortgage. And the fans would eat it up and just make fun of these people on Twitter. It was a terrible show, a terrible, terrible show.
Substance abuse was hilarious.
Oh, so fun.
Mental
funny.
illness was mental illness. Somebody who's, suffering from delusions or babbling to themselves or whatever. That's 10 minutes of stand up for the cop on the street, and then another 5 minutes of stand up for the guy in the studio.
Yeah, that's the part that just bothered me the most, because you guys know, we're critical of cops. Some of these officers are so good with people who have mental health issues or substance issues, and they're not really trained for that. And some of them are so good with these people, but they'd shine the lights on, and the way that they dealt with it on this show was to just make it a ha-ha funny thing. Oh, by the way, buy furniture from the furniture company who's about to advertise. And I thought it was offensive, but they would also do these, like one of my favorite episodes, there's a guy just walking down the street in the middle of the night and he's carrying a bed frame. Ray, I'll let you guess what the man looked like, but they flipped the
Ray,
on and they start harassing him about the bed frame. And it's like, what's your probable cause there? Dude's walking with a bed frame. Isn't this America? We can get our hair cut. We don't have to wear masks, and we can walk down the damn street with a bed frame if we want to. But on this show, any out of the ordinary thing was just a reason to harass people. So,
my personal favorite, the last one I saw, they were in insert warm deserty states here, Arizona or Texas or Nevada, and they're going to serve a search warrant. They pull up, and they know who they're going to go pick up. Okay, they're going to pick up Pat Walsh, and they know what Pat Walsh looks like. And Pat Walsh is sitting outside. He kind of half-ass runs a little bit. They grab him, and then they search like all 12 people who are sitting there having beers with him, like up against the wall. Give me some ID. Give me this. They're there specifically. And then, surprise, surprise, they found a bag of weed on this guy and that. And they're only there to serve a search warrant, and nobody's fighting them. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's giving them reason. And they just search the entire crew and find drugs. And then this, a search warrant for failure to appear on a suspended license turns into like a cocaine bust.
Yeah. And then you get their fans on Twitter who will tell you why they have probable cause to search all these other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the officer thought this, and they're just wrong. And I hate to say this, a lot of them are just idiots, just plain out idiots that show pander to the lowest common denominator. And I hope it dies a fast death, because Dan Abrams, who I have disliked since he was a constitutional lawyer during the OJ trial, is trying to say, if you look at him now, his spin is our show was about police transparency. Meanwhile, every time they did a DUI stop, they would cut away during the middle of the field sobriety test. They never showed you that stuff. They never showed you any of the back stuff. So it was far from transparency. It was about police showmanship, and it needed to go. And I'm glad it's gone, and I hope it doesn't ever come back or anything like it at all.
And there's, some of the fans were replying to Dan Abrams' tweets. And initially it was, okay, well, we're just going somewhere else. We're going somewhere else. We're going somewhere else. And I think, and I don't know what the issue was, but he seems to kind of resolved himself to the fact that live PD done gone.
They've got, we talked about this before we popped on. They have a huge problem. Look, you guys are lawyers. What does the judge think when the police are involved in the death of somebody as a result of a police action, there's an independent camera crew with microphones and everything there. And by the time this guy sues or the defense attorney asks questions, the footage is gone. Like even the most pro state judge in the world is going to be like, you guys got a homicide on camera and you didn't think you needed to save that, right? That's a problem.
Yeah. That's a huge problem. And they truly thought they were doing the Lord's work. And we're not going to get our guys in trouble. Let's just shred this. Because not like they ever have reruns, right? Everything's live. We're just going to show it. We showed it this week. We're not going to have reruns. We're not going to put in syndication. We're not going to do, they thought they were 21st century cops. So you better believe if you want to go and find a videotape of a traffic stop where nothing happened from the very first show they ever did, you bet your backside that thing's still there. And it was, these fans are saying Live PD is responsible for finding missing children. Live PD is responsible for apprehending fugitive. Live PD is responsible for, stopping murders. It was everything under the sun. This show was the salvation of America to some of these people. And I'm looking at it going, how does Live PD showing a picture of a missing kid? So how do you know that person, they saw that kid and not on the news and not on the milk carton, not on their Amber Alert on their phone?
Right. No, this was the only thing. AJ Friend was on there at one point, right? I think the AJ Friend case was on there, and probably they think they solved AJ Friend because.
Oh well, sure they did.
The police found him, but Live PD was literally nothing more than an artificial created dumpster fire that was then used to appeal to the lowest common denominator and sell advertising. I mean, it's worse than NASCAR. At least in NASCAR, those cars for the most part are bulletproof. Nobody has died in NASCAR in many, many years. There was a nasty record issue with Ryan Newman. Car basically hit him in the head. Didn't die. He's back out there racing. They've slowed the cars down to allow for these crazy wrecks with the spectacular stuff going everywhere. But in the end, everybody walks away. I mean, how many lives have been ruined, or people's faces have been shown for no reason, or people have been featured on Live PD for no reason whatsoever in an uncomfortable setting that was basically manufactured for Hollywood.
And it's police transparency. We're not here to see fights. We don't want to see police brutality. We don't want to see, excessive force. How long do you think that show would have stayed on if all they showed was, Officer Jones making a traffic stop, issuing a citation, and going back in? Yeah.
Showing up to houses like, ma'am, I understand a car was going really fast down the street, but unless I see it or unless I have more, I apologize. There's nothing I can do for you here. Thank you, ma'am. Right? That's most of police work.
Yeah.
I had a hope for a second when they were telling us that we had to stay in our houses, when the government was impinging on our rights. I was hoping that people would say, hey, wait a second. You know what? The police, with the riots and everything, the police are invading our rights and their rights. So we should do something about this. But as it turns out, that's not going to happen. If it doesn't involve them, they don't care.
No, they do not.
They do not. I've had a couple of All Lives versus Black Lives Matter discussions with people, and it's stunning that people don't understand the concept. Now, I don't think that Black Lives Matter is the best. I don't think that's the best name for it, but people latch onto that and they say, but you don't understand. I'm not a racist. Don't all lives matter? And the problem is,
the thing about the Black Lives Matter that it's a conversation that started here, it's gone here, it's whatever it is. And the interesting thing is it's like pro-choice versus pro-life, where it's a branding message where people can get hung up in the words. But the reality is when it started, it was kind of a call to like, hey, there's a lot of Black people out here who just don't get treated like you do, right? There's the reality.
And they don't. And right. They don't. You know damn well they don't. It isn't like this. People are being treated badly. Oh no. So you're like, they are.
In fairness, things have changed. Okay. In fairness, even when I started my job as a defense attorney, I didn't realize, like, for example, I have represented 2 people who were pulled over for speeding and ended up getting tased for being on the cell phone. Both of them were black, right? I didn't realize, I guess.
Yes, there, Matt.
What's that?
You didn't let me guess, Matt.
I'm sorry, but what I'm saying is, I never realized that how differently the experience could be. It's not a subtle thing necessarily, but I feel like now, like, you know, after Rodney King, we all took sides after Rodney King, which is like, were the cops justified or not cops justified? But the reality is that Rodney King was video proof of what people complained John Burge used to do to Leroy Orange and all these other people. And people have talked about this for years, and it was easy to ignore. And then you had Rodney King and you saw it, and people still ignored it. And now with the proliferation of cell phones, it's getting harder and harder to ignore. To me, the discussion about Black lives versus all lives is like, all lives do matter. But you know what? If a cop gets killed or a white suburban person gets killed, the case is going to the damn grand jury, period. And it's not going to go half-assed to the grand jury. It's going to go to the grand jury with the eye of, can we indict this? When police kill people, not just black people, but people, it rarely gets that treatment. And overwhelmingly, when they kill people of color, it never gets that treatment. I mean, if you remember, the Ferguson case was months later when the grand jury didn't return a true bill. And I don't know what evidence was presented in that case, but if you can indict a ham sandwich, couldn't you get indictments in that? Jason Van Dyke, like, that was a year later.
I've seen some indictments.
What's that?
I've seen some indictments and some of the discovery that comes down afterwards. You're like, what? So if there was less than that in the that case, I can't imagine. And Will Smith said it, I think, better than most people. You know, he said, you guys are all shocked that this is happening, that so much of this is happening now. It's not happening more now. It's just being taped more now.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody's got a cell phone.
Pat, you're super
that's
old.
the thing.
It's being video recorded. It's not being taped. There's no tape, Pat.
I catch myself saying that all the time in court. Judge, can we go to the tape disc?
It's harder to ignore because it's so prolific now. But the reality is that if it took you George Floyd to realize what's going on, you've been walking around with your head in the sand. And my take on all of it, black lives, police lives, white lives, all lives, I want everybody to go to the same process. Look, police get to investigate for the most part their own deaths, right? Police have police contracts that say that they cannot be interrogated or questioned for up to 30 days after they're involved in killing somebody. There's a lot of protections there that I'd love for my clients, and my clients don't get it. And my question, all of it is, why do we treat them differently?
Well, Nancy Pelosi is looking to one of the things she's sponsoring is she doesn't want the police to have quality immunity anymore.
Quality.
What? Quality, not qualified, Ray.
Yeah.
Not qualified.
Quality. She doesn't want them to have that kind of quality immunity.
Apparently she's okay with immunity, but she just wants a lesser degree, like a little bit shoddier workmanship on the immunity.
I want a lower quality immunity.
So can somebody explain this to me? I haven't really been following that, and my experience with immunity is about what Ray's is, which is it's the federal court telling us that we can't sue judges like we're trying to anyways. Like, can't you still go after them under 1983? I mean, there's an act there that still allows you to sue these people. I don't understand what the immunity issue is.
Well, yes, if there's a civil rights violation, I think that overcomes the quality immunity. But
killing somebody is a civil rights issue.
But I mean, what are you using to show that it's a civil rights issue? Most of what you're going to get is an investigation that was done by the employer of the person who's alleged to have committed the civil rights violation.
And Pat, because I had this conversation with somebody, in your experience, have you ever represented, say, a witness, or you're aware of a witness who was talked to by the Illinois State Police who are investigating cop misconduct, and that witness was told, hey, we've got 3 witnesses over here that are saying the exact opposite of what you're saying. And if we think you're lying to us, we're going to charge you with a crime.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is tactic number 1 for them to get people to back off.
Yes. You don't want to, I mean, we'll sit and talk to you, but I would hate to see you get jammed up on a disorderly conduct, false police report felony out of this. So this is what we know so far. So go ahead and let's hear what you have to say.
Right.
You know, as he's twirling his handcuffs on his finger. Go ahead. Tell me what you know.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, not to get, I don't know what you guys want to talk about, but not to get too far off. I applaud the attention this is all getting on social media, and had a lot of people on Instagram telling me about podcasts to listen to and books to read and all this stuff. And the reality is that like I tweeted yesterday or the day before, we have laws to protect all this stuff. We've got constitutional amendments that prohibit discrimination. We've got a Civil Rights Act in 1964. The reality is whatever immunity you change or words on a paper, the entire game in the process, or the entire process, is gamed. And until you are fixing that, which is, despite what people want to hear, a matter of police training and personnel, I don't think you can pass any words on a paper that are going to be a wake-up call to anybody. I mean, look, we passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Did that make racism go away? Did it make racist stores disappear? Did it make racist people disappear? No, it didn't. They just changed their conduct, and they worked through the holes that they have, and we're still kind of where we are. So I think the call for some of this, you know, some of the laws and stuff, I think is not very well thought out. But I'll point out again, and I've said this before, look at JB Pritzker's committee for criminal justice reform. It's all prosecutors and cops, almost all of it. So yeah, you know,
as it turns out, we passed the 13th Amendment in 1861, and that didn't have the surprise ending here. That really didn't have the effect we thought it would have.
Well, if there's a failure to apply the existing laws, putting more laws on top of the ones that are misapplied and not applied, and I think you said it just exactly that the other day, and I don't know if it was Twitter or Instagram, but all that's going to do is just have another stack of, another deck of cards that nobody's going to play, because we're not applying the ones, we're not holding anybody accountable with the laws we have right now.
I mean, it's words on paper, right? Like, so you want to, let's have a new process to hold police accountable. Like Nancy Pelosi or somebody said we should have a registration for police misconduct. Okay, so here's what happens. You have a registration. The registration says if somebody has been found guilty of misconduct, they go on this registration as a cop. Cool. Who's going to do the investigation? Oh, the other cops, oftentimes from the same department, right? What's the investigation going to look like? Like, there's a lot of, when you write your definition of misconduct, there's a lot of ways to wiggle around that. So I appreciate the sentiment that you're going to have somebody who has complaints against them and not want to hire them or not want them to move on to another department. The reality is, why don't we just start hiring people with completely different backgrounds that aren't going to get in these problems to start? That's my take on it.
Right. And I mean, yes, there are cops who leave here and will go to Florida or California or, wherever, that probably shouldn't have been cops here, and they probably shouldn't be cops there. And if there was a way to track it, that's great. But the registration, like you said, still requires somebody to make the determination, somebody to make to input the data, and somebody to ensure that what you're looking at is 100% accurate, which should be the case. Which should be the case in the first place. If I'm coming from, Main Street USA Police Department, and I'm going to go down to Miami, if Main Street USA Police Department is going to tell Miami that no, we fired him for cause, just to get rid of him, well, the registration is going to be the same way. You just
not that. Like think of what happened when the schools got desegregated, and basically places that weren't right on top of the courthouse or in rural communities still said no. I mean,
right.
It's like you pass a law that's aimed at the Chicago Police Department. Does that mean Cairo, Illinois, or Carbondale? Well, Carbondale maybe, but I mean, some of those, someplace down in Polk County, Illinois is going to care. I don't know. I mean, it's
and I know people are going to listen to what we're saying right now. You're painting all cops with a broad brush. We're not. And the cops who don't belong on that registry, I would think would want something, not necessarily a central database, but I would think they would want accurate records to distinguish the guys who are tarnishing their names and their reputations to get them out.
Going like pulling cops aside and giving them an anonymous vote on their own colleagues that should be voted out would probably be a really good way to figure out who needs to be gone. Like maybe we just somehow put it on them to vote people off the island occasionally. Like, hey, you want to raise this year? Somebody got to go. Who's it going to be? Who's the person most likely to get in a lawsuit
You
here?
want to play police survivor?
Hey, man.
That's actually freaking
That's
brilliant.
trademark, by the way.
I tell people all the time that the thing that cracks me up about mental health issues or mental health court or all this stuff is that the people who are in the best position to tell who's got a mental health issue versus who's just like somebody who needs to be locked up because they're straight up criminal is us, right? And our voice is always minimized. So why not apply that same thinking to the cops? Give the cops some credit to ferret out these bad dudes. Like, look, Pat, you coached baseball. Hey, somebody catches a civil rights case this year, you're all running sprints for 3 weeks. If you want to vote the guy most likely to catch that case off the island, less chance you're going to be punished or more chance you're going to get a bonus or whatever.
Right. Who do you think's going to keep you guys in the weight room for an extra hour and a half?
Right.
Let us know, and let's either nip it in the bud or get them gone.
Exactly. So
that's flipping brilliant, Hayuk.
I'm just out here thinking
you
through
just
solutions.
caused a bunch of teenage baseball players to be tortured by their coach, and they don't appreciate it. Thank you.
What?
Thank you so much.
After these
I love doing laps. Love it. I can do it all day.
These last 13 weeks, as long as they're not starting fires in the dugout, they're pretty good. I'm just happy to see them on a ball field after a while.
I'm just saying, approach it like private industry. You're on a bonus structure, and your bonus gets depreciated by the number of complaints that come in, and you guys have the right to kick people out who are going to screw up your bottom line. I mean, whatever. I could come up with all kinds of ideas.
He's describing the Japanese industrial model.
When you get pinched, you have to rate your cop like an Uber driver.
There you go.
We need an app, Pat. Now we're getting somewhere.
Well, as funny as you guys make it, I have found people to be very, very in tune with the police officer. I've had people say, I got arrested. I should have been arrested. It's super to get the guy who's like, oh, this guy went off, and then the problem is that you get the guy who says the cop went off, and then you read the name and you go, oh, I know that guy. That cop? I know that one.
You'd be surprised. I think people who don't do what we do would be stunned at the number of times our clients tell us, that was the nicest cop I've ever met. As he's stuffing you in the back of the squad car.
All the time. Probably 75, high 80%. He was
so nice to me. Every time I hear that, I cringe. I'm like,
He was so nice. I had a 2-hour conversation with him. It was great. And you're just like, oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to go to trial on this case, man.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there absolutely are cops out there who are amazing at their job, who are, like you said, amazing at dealing with people with mental health issues or substance abuse issues, people who can talk to drunks and people who can't talk to drunks. And, I mean, there's, you can't have a bad day as a brain surgeon. You can't have a bad day as an airline pilot. And yeah, I mean, there's cops that have bad days, but you can't have every day be a bad day. You can't have people there's people out there that shouldn't be dealing with the general public. I should not work retail. Okay. I could not handle dealing with Karen and Sharon and Taryn.
How about being a waiter, Pat? I think you'd be a great waiter.
Oh, I think I have the perfect disposition for somebody to tell me that their steak is cold for the 3rd time in a row.
You stepped on my foot. Screw you.
Right? That's not my wheelhouse. That's not what I'm going to do. I don't. Uh-oh.
In every story, there's a story that writes itself.
You had me at Florida. Go on, move this down. This is gold.
Please
Oh,
don't.
it's gold. Wait
I
till
do
you
not
read
want to
it.
hear this man skull cracking again. Don't play that video.
Hey, Buffalo 57 in Atlanta, we're hiring in Florida. Lower taxes, no spineless leadership, or dumb mayors rambling at press conferences. Plus, we got your back for your misconduct.
Brevard County.
You know what drives
Holy
You know what drives me
balls.
nuts about that, and it's kind of a corollary issue, and I posted some links to my blog earlier, is that the fairly modern idea that police departments are public relations arms of the government. I know they've always issued press releases, but you have cop shops putting out press releases daily now. And this is the same thing. You've got this is obviously a PR move saying, you know, we're cops and we got your back and we're pandering to our people. Man, are we not entering just a really weird era where the police are directly talking to the public strictly for purposes of like garnering public affection or having a following or building a community behind them? Is it?
But
Am
but
I-
the thing is that isn't that the nature of the job? I'm a police officer. I want to show you all the bad guys that I collect for you. Look at me collecting bad guys.
You know, Ray, it didn't used to be when I was growing up. Like that wasn't. I'm sure those stats were kept somewhere, but they weren't published, and the police weren't spouting out after every arrest. Basically, like, well, we pinched this guy with drugs. I mean, you read stuff in the newspaper, but when you look, the police are literally writing press releases that are like going straight to print. And I had this blog post. I ended up not publishing it. To make a long story short, about 2 or 3 years ago, the Kane County state's attorney here comes out with like how they win a class 4 ag bat trial. And it's this glowing press release. And I think it was the Daily Herald or the Chronicle prints it verbatim. And what they never look into is find out was the same case had a charge of
Attempted murder.
And it was a not guilty. And that never makes the article at all. And a couple of these newspapers just lapped it up and went with it. And it's just ridiculous that these police and these prosecutors are speaking directly to people, that the press is putting it out there word for word, and that there's, like, you guys know, especially pretrial, there's nothing we can do about it. Like literally nothing. Somebody gets arrested today, a press release goes out. There's nobody in the world that can rebut that. Nobody.
No.
We don't have
No.
reports, right?
Nope. And, you know, going back to, we were talking about, you know, who's investigating, you know, the Fox is essentially investigating the hen house. Did you guys see the report on Breonna Taylor's incident?
I have not seen it yet.
I haven't seen the actual print, but I've seen a couple of different breakdowns of it. Louisville Metro police officers were the ones who fatally shot Ms. Taylor. Okay. And there was a couple of things that I didn't know about it. One, I didn't know that initially a gunshot went through the door when the door was being battered. Yes. Okay. I understand that. It still doesn't answer why they were there. It still doesn't answer why they were at the wrong address. I don't know that anybody that was named in that warrant actually lived there or had lived there. There were no drugs. The detective still hasn't answered how he got a no-knock warrant. But the injuries, and you can see it on the report or on the story. 3 months later, almost the entire report is blank. The 4-page report lists time, date, case number, incident location, and the victim's name, Breonna Shaquille Taylor, as well as the fact that she's a 26-year-old Black female. Street number, date of birth, all that was redacted, even though that's out there. Her injuries are listed as none. She was shot 8 times fatally. It lists the charges as death investigation, forced entry on the report, even though they used the battering ram. No. The offenders are listed as the 3 officers who fired. Not, it says it's fueling reports for the end of no-knock warrants. Most important portion of the report, the narrative, which you would think would be after 3 months, they'd have their story straight, has only 2 words, PIU investigation, which I assume is the police integrity unit or something along those lines. And the rest of the information the rest of the report has no information at all. No injuries, no forced entry. They list the offenders as the officers. But there's no information. Louisville shot her. Louisville's doing the investigation. Now, one thing I will say about at least our area, ISP would be on that. Now,
Right.
some would say that's a different fox guarding the same hen house, but at least you have a
You have people who are
police
not in the
agency.
chain of command.
Right. You have a police agency who's not theoretically or figuratively working with these people all day. That to me, and you know what? Okay, there was a shot fired through the door. They absolutely should charge it because I don't think they should have been there. It certainly shouldn't have been there with a no-knock warrant, and the detective still hasn't answered the questions. But in a long list of just horrendous turns of event in this thing, Louisville's investigating Louisville, and that's got to stop. I mean, that should be statutory.
This is what people want to talk about, listening to your podcasts or watching your book, reading books or watching movies, donating to worthy causes. Like this is an easy thing to fix, right? This is a really easy thing to fix. This is not something that is going to require a lot of process. It's not going to require really a law change. I mean, I guess you could do it through a law. This is something that can be fixed tomorrow without a lot of work.
Well, and the plus side is the police department acknowledged errors in the report and said it was the result of the reporting program creating a paper file. Inaccuracies in the report are unacceptable to us, and we are taking immediate steps to correct the report and ensure the accuracy of incident reports going forward. So are they asking everybody to believe that they just said, oh, you want the report? Hit the print button, here you go. They're not looking at it. They don't know what they were releasing. 3 months later, this is going out to the press. This is going out to the public. And I don't know if it was a FOIA request or what, but we're just pumping this thing out and we have no idea what's on it. Or did they think people are just going to say, oh, well, okay, we'll let this go?
I want to know, in this day and age, I'm slightly younger than you guys. So you guys probably got your first cell phones at 30. I got mine at 28, right? I mean, we're probably close on the technology. I go to the store, and if my wife wants something from Taco Bell, it's send me a text. If she hands me a list of something, I take a picture with my phone.
Yes.
Why are we even still relying in large part on police narratives? We have audio recording devices, we have video recording devices, we have license plate scanners, we have body cams, we have cameras in the end of tasers, we can put cameras on guns. Why is the police narrative not something that's filling in the blank?
Because the police narrative is something that's very easy to set up so that it works for you. If the patrol officer writes a report and the sergeant looks at it, he's going to say, you forgot to put these items in, and these extra items, I don't need to see those. And he's going to be able to edit it so that it fits their narrative.
So Ray, what you're saying is the narrative is important because they can shade the facts one way or another.
That is true.
I mean, I don't know how you guys operate, but when I see a police report, I always tell my client, like, look, we're not going to go over this report till I have the video, because videos are usually dispositive one way or another. The video is going to tell us if we have a decent trial, or they have a terrible trial, or we have a terrible trial. I don't care what this report says. He can lie in there all he wants, but if this video shows something else, it's hard for him to run.
There's times where, I mean, you guys know, And it's not as prevalent with the younger guys, but some of the guys who've been doing this for 20, 25 years, you can see the ticket and the name on the bottom of the ticket when they bring in their paperwork. And with, if you had a half hour, you could probably generate with 65 to 90% accuracy what that report's going to say, just because it's that guy. Now, every DUI case is
yeah. They're like form reports.
The ones, the reports where you're like, ooh, are the ones where they're writing the narrative while they rewatch the video. Those are the ones.
Those are the worst.
Right. You're like, I might as well wad this thing up and throw it away.
Do not do that.
I had we had a judge in A380 a long time ago. He was a state's attorney for a long time, and then he was a judge, and he's long since retired. I had an officer on the stand who was probably the biggest culprit of this. And, it's a trial for Pat Walsh. And as I'm reading the report, I see Pat Walsh on the top, Pat Walsh here. And the first line has Pat Walsh's name and vehicle. And then as I'm reading down, Ray Flavin's information is in there. Ray Flavin is doing this. And this was a department that refused, after we smoked them a couple of times using at that point, it was videotapes, it was VHSs. So your file was, 3 times bigger.
Right.
So I then went and subpoenaed Ray Flavin's video or Ray Flavin's report. And it was literally the same report, word for word. And the judge found out about it. And that officer did not have a great deal. We didn't do a lot of juries with that officer from that point forward, because it really, we joke about cut and paste. 100% it was cut and paste, but he did about 10% of the job and just said, whatever.
Well, it's hard to remember when to go in a document and pull out a name and put in the new name. That's hard to do, because if you forget one, it's totally embarrassing. You're like, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, next John Doe. You're like, well, wait, why is Bob Smith in there in John Doe's report?
Yeah. And I mean, Jesus, on every word processing program, even way back then, it was replace this with this. That's just lazy. You're not even doing a report. You're not even lying in your report full steam. So yeah, I mean, the video is
lying, Pat. He was efficient. He was efficiently generating reports.
But this is so, like, this is, people are talking about all kinds of stuff with the cops, right? Like, the cameras are everywhere now. I mean, how about a judge steps up and says, look, if you have a squad car and your squad car video equipment does not work and you're not wearing a body cam, I've heard enough of your crap. Like McHenry County Sheriff's Police for years had no camera working apparently in any car. Basically, they had all the equipment. And you guys may or may not know this, but like Axon, the company making the body cameras, is basically giving them away right now because they're making their money on the storage on the back end of it. And they're doing all kinds of shady crap with it. But the amount of money that is going towards armored personnel carriers and stuff that the police are self-funding could go to things that would change all of this stuff, right? Like being more modern with Discovery, having Discovery flipped over immediately. It's annoying to me on some level, because everybody is calling for these not crazy, but these new to them ideas. And I'm looking at it going, well, the structure to do what we need to do is already there. We're just not using it. And before we do a million other things, like let's why is it not going to happen with them too? I mean, it's
the statute that requires all Illinois State Police to video record, not tape, video record all of their stops has no sanction in the statute if they don't.
And those cars are religiously serviced. They're religiously given their oil changes. They're religiously doing tire rotations. Those squad cars are, for the most part, doing maintenance at a way higher interval than your car or my car or anybody else's car. But when it comes to video recording and cameras or actual calibration of speedometers for pacing or any of that stuff, it's like it's kind of like, we'll get around to it when we want to, and it's not. It's like I don't know a defense attorney out there who's fearing body cams right now. I mean,
No.
we're the people like record everything and let us sort it out. I don't.
Well, Matt and I have had several cases in the not too distant past with one of the biggest writers on the largest law enforcement department in the county.
The good lieutenant.
And yes, and his squad for about 2 years was waiting on spare parts. And I made a comment in front of a jury one time. I said, well, I'm in the wrong business. I should be selling spare parts for video cameras. Lieutenant, what haven't you been waiting on that for approximately 2 years? I was admonished somewhat severely, but it's true. They have there's absolutely no problem them going in there and go, yep, I'm waiting on spare parts.
And here's the ridiculous thing out of this. How many squad cars does that department have? Can he not take the car of somebody who's not working then? I know they're super possessive of their cars, but look, if you sail across the ocean with a crew and you're going around the clock, you're going to switch beds. So they can be a little less possessive about their little police cars when it comes.
Well, and that's something I've hit on too. Well, okay, this is your car. Your car's not video. Is it more important that you drive your own car, or is it more important that you get an accurate account of what happened?
Right.
Turns out, it's more important to drive your own car.
Some of those guys get catty.
Probably on the tail end of that.
So, but yeah. And I think I sent it to you guys yesterday. I'm trying to find it here. Oh yeah. We talked about this a million years ago when this thing first started. Nope, hold on. This is one of the few times I have actually agreed with Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
She's your favorite, Pat.
AOC.
AOC.
I think Pat's got a thing for her.
I almost tweeted her and said, it happened. I didn't think I would ever agree with you, but it happened.
I just want to say, Pat, because I try not to follow political people. 99% of the time she pops up in my timeline, it's because you are speaking at her.
I do chat with her, although it's kind of a one-sided chat. She never really tweets me back, and I'm kind of surprised.
Just keep trying. She'll come around.
IBM, and I heard later in the afternoon today, IBM and Microsoft have both said IBM is getting out of the facial recognition business because they realize the problems and the misuse and the infringement upon rights that people can suffer from facial recognition. And there seems to be one demographic that doesn't quite get identified as accurately as other demographics. And I think they're starting to realize that now. And they're getting out of the game completely. Now, Microsoft isn't getting out of the facial recognition business, but before they sell it to any departments, they're going to need to see their civil rights policy and need to see some sort of good faith show.
Storage function with that also?
What's that?
Isn't there a storage function with that where they record new ones and they add the name to it?
Yes.
Because I know that some of our local police departments have cameras that they add names to, and then it will look at somebody and tell you who they are.
Ray, if you have an Android phone and you use Google Photos used to do that. And the reason Google Photos doesn't do that anymore, at least here, is that Illinois has passed a law preventing them from doing it. And part of this IBM suit makes me wonder if IBM is not seeing large scale law changes state by state saying you can't keep this data anymore. Like Illinois was pretty much on the forefront of that. And Facebook just got slammed with a huge class action settlement in Illinois. I think it was like $300 million or something insane. And if IBM sees that coming, this could be more of a business move than anything else. So I don't, you know.
Oh, 100% it's a business move, but I mean, at least they have the common sense to realize the misuse of the technology, and they're getting out of it. And yeah, I gotta believe that, you know, they could make just piles of cash on subscription fees from law enforcement departments to have access to, you know, to that kind of database.
Yeah, and isn't that kind of the way this is? I mean, really, all of this stuff is feeding into storage, because I think in the next however many years, that's where all the money's going to be. You're not going to keep anything on your hard drive or anything stored close. And you know, we talk about police departments who are going to have cameras or should have cameras everywhere. None of that stuff's going to get stored on site. It's all going to be stored off somewhere else. So
Right.
which
Right. I mean, just the
also
sheer volume of what they're collecting every day.
makes me more skeptical about this crazy story from Live PD that they destroy this footage. They don't destroy anything. It's on a hard drive somewhere. I guarantee it. And if it's not on a hard drive somewhere, they intentionally destroyed it when they probably have not destroyed anything else.
And it's almost like there's some, you know, they're trying to obstruct something. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to suck up to police departments and
Yes.
say, you want to participate with us because we know how to play ball. And the way that we play ball is if we see something bad, we'll get rid of it for you.
Sure. But like, I don't know if you guys ever read that Live PD contract I got. Lake County was on Live PD, and I FOIA'd a copy of their contract. Those contracts are not very lucrative for police departments. And a lot of those departments have just pulled the plug on that stuff because they don't want to be part of it. I mean, the ones that are kind of driving that show are like these morons from Pasco. Who I love to troll them on Twitter. Pasco, Richland County. There's 3 or 4 departments that have these insanely rabid, huge Twitter followers that are really driving the show. The rest is people who kind of get into it, realize it's not worth it, and get out of it. So,
Well, Pasco County was the one who said, you know, enjoy drive. Weren't they the ones who said, enjoy driving with your suspended registration and your broken taillight? As soon as it's over, we're coming for you.
yeah, that would have been them.
Oh, Jesus.
I love Pasco because if you sift through their stuff, they used to frequently give really, really bad legal advice on their Twitter about, you know, like talk to the cops or do this or do that. And
Talk to the cop. If you're helpful to the cops, they'll be helpful to you.
that's that. Ray, they'll get
Only
you
the
charges.
lawbreaker need fear of the law.
Only a lawbreaker. Listen, you don't have anything to fear if you didn't do anything wrong.
Accurate.
Right?
Accurate.
And just for some of you out there, that is entirely horribly horseshit advice, by the way. That's like the worst advice that you could give somebody.
I don't know, Ray. I did one.
If you'll just talk to the police, I'm sure they'll go away.
I did once hear, I'm in Cook County at Rolling Meadows, and I hear a defense lawyer saying out loud, this is exactly what he said. This is right after I go into private practice. I'm coming off my public defender job, and I'm just like trying to soak it all in. And this guy talking to somebody else says loudly in the courtroom, well, I don't know. I always tell my clients, if you can stand and talk reasonably well, you should go ahead and do the field sobriety test, because I'll get it all thrown out as fruit of the poisonous tree. That was a defense lawyer that said that.
You know what though? You know what I
I'm having
like
a hard time breathing right now.
I was looking at him like, ooh, I've never heard that before. And I know at the time I'd only been doing this like 5 years. I'm like, I've never said that before. And I've never seen a judge throw out field.
You know what I like about it?
Yeah.
That client will never see a judge throw out any of it except for this guy's.
Yeah.
See, that guy is super special. When he tells other people, well, you just got to hire my lawyer because he'll get that stuff thrown out. That lawyer was genius.
You know, the scary thing is
Genius, I tell you.
it's like Cook County. So that guy might have had a string of like 15 of these where it worked out for him. You know, you don't know there.
I've had clients in the past be upset with themselves. You know, I was quiet. I didn't say anything, and the cop got really pissed. If I would just talk to him, I probably wouldn't have been charged. And I try to explain to him, you know, I've been doing this for, 20 some years now. And not once have I ever looked at a police report and said, thank God this guy or this woman talked. Now I've got a good case. Not
So
once.
I had a
Not once.
client come in on a juvenile abuse neglect thing, and the cops are trying to talk to him. And there was legit nothing to fear there. Like, this is a garbage case. I think I'm going to win it. But now they're looking at these people for like an ag bat, right? Because this baby had some broken stuff. And I do what I do, which is I send the cops a letter that says, my client really wants to talk to you, but I have to talk to him and the timing's not right. And why don't you get back to me up the road and we'll see if we can make this happen. Like, it's, that's how I do it. I'm
Right.
a little bit vague. I put it on me, and they never get back to you. Anyhow, we end up getting the police reports when they close it. We do the juvenile hearing, like the cops testify or whatever. And this is one of these clients who still wants to believe, and I'm getting the, are you sure I shouldn't talk? Are you sure I got nothing to hide? Or sure? No, don't talk. And then after the cop testifies, says to me in open court, wow, I'm glad I didn't talk. She was going to arrest me, wasn't she? And I was like, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Because usually the ones you say don't talk are questioning you for months. Are you sure I shouldn't have done that? I sure should. No.
They're really upset with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the cops upset with you.
I don't have anything to hide. I'll tell them everything. No, because they're not really going to see things the way you see it.
On the flip side, by the way, I have walked in with a couple of people to talk and it's worked out well, but that's always a controlled scenario, right? We're going on my terms. We're talking about it. I already know what they're going to charge or not charge with, I know what they're talking about going in. It's not ever a judgment call a client should make or do on their own, ever.
No, absolutely not.
Well,
Well,
gentlemen,
boys,
are we back next Wednesday, or what are we doing?
Are we done already? Oh, we are done already.
We are
9:30.
just like that.
We're packing a
going
week's
to
worth of stuff in here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with Wednesdays.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thursday. We're on Thursday nights.
Either or. Thursday.
I can't even think that far ahead right now. I'm just trying to get to the weekend. So
I will. Well, actually, you know what? I'll have my schedule. I'll have my schedule here shortly for next week. So
okay, well, let's bid the internet good night.
bye, internet.
Good night,
Adios,
internet.
guys. Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next Thursday,